Hi, everybody. Dr. Debunk back for part 3 in understanding inflammation and the consequences to the human body. You have to look at parts 1 and 2, where I kind of go over the science, the physiology of it all. And then I left off with the natural anti-inflammatories as the treatment of chronic inflammation with aging. As I mentioned, when we age, we start to have dysregulation of our anti-inflammatory control mechanisms. Our body inflames itself and de-inflames itself. And we still don't get why in the 40s it goes sideways. And so what we can start doing in the 40s and 50s, and especially at my age, is using the science of natural anti-inflammatories. Now, I'm not up on some of the other ones, and I need to look at. 10 years ago, I looked at Q-Curmin, which is a popular one now. It's a big fad thing. These things like to cycle through nutritional sales as a fad, from things like glucosamine and chondroitin for joint pains and Q-Curmin as an anti-inflammatory. It was almost 10 years ago it got pushed, but and maybe there's better science now, but the most well-studied nutrient in the history of nutrients is resveratrol. Now, resveratrol has been an antioxidant for 50, 60 years. It's grapeseed extract. It's what they say why wine is good for you. Resveratrol is a nutrient. It's an antioxidant found in nature. It's in all fruits and vegetables, but it's concentrated in certain ones over others. And so they first realized it was an antioxidant, and it was used in small amounts, 5, 10 milligrams, for a decade or two. And then somewhere around, it's 20 years ago, maybe a little more, and cancer researchers, and this is a hard one to know exactly who started doing it, but realized that resveratrol would break down into a different kind of polyphenol. Resveratrol is part of the class of polyphenols, and it's a big topic in health science now, all these different polyphenols. Quercetin is one, and that's the one that got popular during COVID, but turmeric, and then with Q-Curmin became popular. But resveratrol was the first one. Excuse me. And when the cancer researchers, they realized that this breakdown product, I think it's 2 steps in breaking down resveratrol to excrete it out of the human body. It was a chemotherapy agent. It killed cancer cells. So it started a flurry of studies, because if you're a drug company and you can easily make this product, well, you save a ton of money in R&D, and you would have a chemotherapy agent. And so they studied the snot out of resveratrol. Now, when you study cancer, you study inflammation, because cancer cells love inflammation and they cause it. And so during the course of that, they realized, oh my gosh, super high dose resveratrol blocks interleukins. It blocks interleukins 1 and 5. It drops tumor necrosis factor. So, and what that means is, because most of you won't get it, it means it's acting like a steroid, but it's not a steroid. So the implications are staggering. Wait, we have a way to reduce chronic inflammation with a natural substance that we see no harmful effects over the last 30 years? We just have to dose it 10 times more than normal? So it started a ton of research. And so to fast forward now, there's probably 300 laboratory studies that have been done on resveratrol and 20 clinical trials at least. Now, they're not gigantic trials, but there is no question in laboratory and clinical trials that you can dial down chronic inflammation in human beings dose dependently by how much resveratrol you take. And so it became a game changer. At the same time, another company called Star Pharmaceuticals realized that anatobine, which is this very small molecule, is an antioxidant, and they found it in tobacco leaves. And anyway, and then tomatoes. Well, this company, and I have no idea the history, how they figured it out. They're a small pharmaceutical company. They were. But anatobine is probably the most potent chronic anti-inflammatory nutrient ever found. And so they figured out how to make it and extract it, I think, from tomatoes. And they created a product and they marketed it to athletes. And it changed the course of the career of these athletes. These athletes that were older would say that anatobine was reversing their career by 2 years, because athletes finally have so much inflammation they can't play, they can't perform. Anyway, anatobine went away because, in my opinion, it was a threat to the pharmaceutical companies. But Star Pharmaceuticals got a warning letter from the FDA because they were making millions. It was becoming very popular. It was expensive. It was $100 a bottle, but the effects were immediate and dramatic. And so the government said, you're trying to treat people medically with this product and you can't do it. You're not doctors. And so normally companies don't care about warning letters from the FDA. They just ignore them and make the FDA take them into court. And numerous companies have done that, and they keep making millions, and then finally they may have to stop. Well, it was like the next day after the FDA warned Star Pharmaceuticals, they closed their doors and went out of business, gone. Now, why would you do that? Somebody bought them out. And to make a long story short, natural anti-inflammatories threaten the entire statin market. The drug companies, Americans would be able to reduce their statins by 50% if they understood that it's not LDL cholesterol that's the bad guy. It's vasculitis. It's inflammation of your arteries. Well, if you take enough resveratrol, you don't have any inflammation of your arteries, so you don't have any clots. But, and I'll talk about that at length. That's an upcoming thing. So anyway, so we were left with resveratrol, and I'm an old fart, and I used a lot of anatobine, and it was unreal. I used it personally, patients. I did a small pilot study with the company, and I was just stunned when they disappeared, but I'm sure they got paid 10 times the amount. So resveratrol, I started using it 15, 16 years ago. There is nothing like it on the market. It will dial down chronic inflammation anywhere in your body in a dose-dependent fashion. It's the toughest to get it for nerve endings. It's slow for chronic back pain and neuritis and things. But for the aches and pains of aging that we get, those just go away pretty much. It helps people with fibromyalgia. And so the way to understand, if you're not going to wait for me to do the details on the website, I've written one book in my life, and that was about 15 years ago, because I spent a year being obsessed with resveratrol because the implications are staggering. Remember what I just told you. Resveratrol will dial down inflammation naturally with no ill effects. After using it for probably 17 years, we still don't see any effects. And just lately, patients have taught me a new way to use it that's amazing, where you take high dose, 1 or 2 days, and it works like a steroid. It's amazing. I mean, the problem with resveratrol is laxative, and so you're limited how long you can take a lot. But anyway, and it's a nutrient, so, like all things, you have to look into it yourself, but it's not a drug. You don't have a prescription. And the cost has come down. The dose I give people now, 17 years ago, was $100 a month. Now it's like $25 because it's probably one of the most widely made supplements in the world. There's a lot of junk resveratrol out there, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I wrote a little short paperback about this thick 15 years ago on this very subject, on chronic inflammation and the game changer. It's on Amazon. There's no hard copies anymore, but Amazon, I mean, everybody's got Prime. It's Amazon Books, electronic book. The way to find it is plug in my name as an author, and it'll come up, because there are 10,000 books on inflammation, and I'm way down at the bottom. You'll never find it. But I take that back. One person in 15 years found it, and they actually called and did a telemedicine visit with me. But if you plug in my name, and it'll give you all the details. Now, it's old, but everything is still accurate. In fact, it's even better than what I'm saying there. We've learned so much more. I've not seen one adverse event from resveratrol. A couple people are allergic, and they're just, for some reason, they're sensitive and can't take it. But other than that, resveratrol for any aches and pains. Now, you have to look into this yourself, because now I'm in the realm of treatment, and you're not my patient. So, because it's a nutrient, though, this is educational. I'm sharing with you my experiences. So, if you have any concerns, you'll have to talk to your doctor. I don't see it interacting with any drugs, but again, you have to determine, you have to do your own research to prove or disprove what I'm saying, and then decide. So if you were to do your work and wanted to do resveratrol therapy, if you don't want to go get the book, you don't have to, then you can take resveratrol anywhere from 2 to 6 capsules a day. They're 250 milligrams. And it will change you. If you have chronic aches and pains, if you have any nagging aches in any organ in your body, resveratrol goes into the bloodstream. And the theory is that they think, and I haven't seen any newer research yet, that it blocks the receptor sites for these interleukins. Interleukins are a group of molecules in our body that are most responsible for chronic inflammation. And there's almost 40 interleukins they've discovered. We didn't even know they existed till 1995-ish. Interleukins 1 and 6 are the most notorious for jacking up inflammation. Some of them will reduce, but how we regulate them and use them, it's still a mystery. They probably know more. I haven't looked in about 4 years, so I'm not up to date on it, but it's most likely it blocks receptor sites for the interleukins, dialing up inflammation for local tissues, wherever it is. And so then your inflammation dials down. And we have numerous blood markers. CRP and homocysteine are the two common markers of inflammation in the blood. And I won't explain it right now, but we have 40 blood tests or so that measure the level of total body inflammation. Those two, CRP and homocysteine, give a general idea of where you're at. And you can watch these numbers come down with resveratrol therapy. I've been, like I said, 15 years. I've done thousands of homocysteine and CRP blood tests. Anyway, and so here's how you do it. The only side effect with resveratrol is it's a laxative. And most people with age need that. So, and most people can take 4 a day. So it comes in a lot of doses, but the 250 milligram dose is my favorite. And we'll talk about where to get it. But if you can take 500 milligrams in the morning and 500 milligrams around dinner, ideally as soon as you get up, and then around dinner, 12 hours apart, you will see a progressive reduction. Now, rule number 1, you must take it twice a day. If you don't take it twice a day, it's not going to work. It has to do with the half-life and peak plasma level, how long it stays in your blood, and how high the level gets. If you don't keep it in your blood long enough, it doesn't get into your cells. If it doesn't get into your cells, it doesn't reduce inflammation. And that's why it took so long. Everybody was doing once a day studies, and it doesn't work. So, and if you take 2 of the 250 milligram capsules, most people can tolerate it. If you can't and you get diarrhea, you'll have to stop taking it, wait till you stop having diarrhea, and start with 1 twice a day. But the lowest effective dose is about 250 milligrams twice a day. And then you go up from there. Men do the best with 3 of the 250, 750 twice a day. And if 2 capsules can bug your stomach, but if you take 2 bites of food, literally, you should be fine. And so it takes 1 month to work. Most people feel nothing for the first 30 days. Sometimes you notice it, and then it starts working. At 3 months, you'll have the peak effect for whatever dose you're taking. So it'll have 6 a day has a better effect than 4 a day, but they'll both at 4 a day of the capsules, you'll get an effect that by 3 months is the best it'll be. If you want a better effect, you have to take more. And you can take 10 short term. Some patients have shown me this. And so now when I screw up my back, because I'm always working on a property on the weekends, Normally it'd put me out for a week. I'd have to be careful. If I can get in 10 resveratrol 2 days in a row, my back stops hurting because it stops the excessive inflammatory. I hurt my back. It causes an acute inflammatory reaction that goes really high. With resveratrol on board, you block that effect. It doesn't go so stupid high. You react more like when you were in your 30s. And so I heal so much quicker. And usually by the second day, I'm getting diarrhea, but whatever. And so that's how it goes. You have to figure out what you can tolerate. Now, the website will have extensive on this, all the science. In the book on Amazon, I have 25 or 30 studies listed at the end of the book to show you the scientific evidence is real. Because doctors say this stupid stuff all the time. There's no science that these nutrients can do that. No, you don't look at the science because doctors only look at drug studies, not nutrient studies. Well, more and more they're getting done. And so, and the Q-cumin, maybe there's some newer studies, but when I tried to mess with Q-cumin 10 years ago, and it was maybe 8 years ago, it just didn't work. The doses weren't strong enough. It also has to do, the molecular size of resveratrol is better than the molecular size of Q-cumin. And I won't even try to explain that. But to date, because anatabine is gone, no one is trying to make it. No one probably ever will. Resveratrol is the best. And I have patients with massive inflammatory problems, diseased and non-diseased, and they could not function without resveratrol. And you can go find this. There are so many other sources now of science and inflammation. You go on PubMed, and you can find these studies on resveratrol. You can find them, and you can validate everything I'm saying. And so for now, that is the best treatment for inflammation control. Now, I'm going to do one more video, probably next week, to finish this thing on inflammation because there's some more information. But it is all natural, and there are other substances, and I'm not against it. Q-cumin works, but in my opinion, nowhere near as good as resveratrol. So that's pretty much it. That's we'll finish next time. And thanks for listening. I'm Dr. Debunk. Bye. Turn it off.